Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in on you. I hope that all of you are doing well as you prepare to get your day off to a good start. I just wanted to take a brief moment to introduce you to a challenge that I'm extending to anybody within earshot or eye shot, and that is the 30-day read and run challenge. And here's why. I'm sure that all of you guys have heard about the untimely passing of Robert Baseman Washington. If you're anywhere in the Houston area, I don't have to tell you who that is. If you're over the age of 45 and you hit maxis at any time at the beginning of the 2000s and had the chance of listening to him MC a party along with DJ Steve Nice, then there's no need to speak on it anymore. And this was a brother that had started getting his health together. And unfortunately, life has a way of, bringing some realities into check. It's, unfortunate, and I'm lifting up his family, sending all of the love and energy and prayers and everything else, as they try to deal with this. His wife, who he was absolutely crazy about, is obviously going through something right now. So if you know the family, if you know a way to reach out, send them the love and energy and attention they need at this time. But he's not the only one. I have witnessed so much over the last year, and it wasn't but a little over a year ago that, I was right at the death's door in ICU for almost a week, spending about 8 months in rehab, just being able to regain the use of both arms. Most of you guys didn't know the depth of it because I'm not a complainer. I told you guys I hit a snag and I went to work, but we get caught up in life. Life happens. And we get caught up in it and we start trying to deal with things. That's why I am a huge advocate of seeing the bigger picture, because it's so easy to get caught up in survival mode of what's happening today. What can I fix today? That we don't see the bigger picture and we don't prepare ourselves. See, when you start looking at the bigger picture, you see how much life expects from you. Not necessarily everything you can get from life. That's one thing. But life is demanding something of you. Your design is demanding something of you. Everything about you, the unique sequence in your DNA that encapsulates or houses your unique gifts and genius, and everyone has it, is demanding something of you. That genius is there for a reason. And when you see that, you understand your purpose. You begin to look beyond the day and see that life is going to be demanding a lot out of you. And if life is going to be demanding a lot out of you, you've got to be at your best. And what we tend to do, and I've done it, and that's why I'm sitting in front of you. I'm not perfect. Fitness was my thing as an athlete, obviously. But the first company I ever started completely, totally on my own was Stay Fit Fitness and Training, which is now Master Fitness 21. It was the first one I started from scratch. If that's excluding all the little stuff I did coming up through school, like cut hair, cut yards, and all that stuff like that. I've always been grinding on some level, selling whatever could have been sold back then. But just really setting up thing and have it structured the way a company should be structured. It was Stay Fit Fitness and Training, which evolved into Master Fitness 21. And an extension of that now is Diet Solutions Unveiled. But anyway, I've done so much since then, and just expanding myself, growing my love of helping people. And so almost all of my business are in some way tied to helping people. Well, anyway, here we are. And I'm looking at I had let myself go last couple of years. I just posted a picture from 5 years ago when I was hitting the gym at midnight. If I had a hard, long day and couldn't get to the gym, I was getting there. And it was like these midnight sessions that actually became like a ritual. You go into 24-hour fitness. I was in Dallas at the time. And you go into 24-hour fitness, it's like 2 other people in the gym. And you just get to go absolutely berserkers. And It's just you and yourself. You know, I like working out with, you know, buddies and stuff like that. That's a good way to stay motivated. But I also like that time to myself when I'm really zeroed in and I'm focused, not just on what I'm accomplishing in the gym that day, but what my future looks like. I'm real big on understanding the dynamic of faith, understanding the dynamic of what you anticipate and expect out of life. And so I don't see where I'm at as much as I see where I'm going. I know where I'm at and I need to deal with what's going on here. But if I get too caught up in it, I end up spending so much time focusing on fixing the now that I'm never prepared to do what I should be doing in the future. So I end up going every day just being able to deal with that day because I didn't prepare for it, because I spent too much time focused on that. And when you have a bigger picture, you sit up and say, okay, man, if I'm going to be doing all this in my life, I got to be in the best condition, because that's going to demand a lot out of me physically. But it also says, man, if I'm going to be expected to do this at this level, I'm going to have to increase my intellectual power. I'm gonna have to put my brain to work. I'm gonna have to challenge my brain. And the brain is like a muscle. Your mind is like an immaterial muscle. The less you use it, the less functional and less powerful it is. The more you use it, the more it's able to tap into resources within itself that you are not even currently available exist. You've got to push yourself to a point where your brain kicks in and says, I got more for you. Hold on a second. But most of us get to this point of, okay, wait a minute, that's challenging. Wait a minute, that's uncomfortable. Wait a minute, I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's the moments of uncertainty that you tap into your belief in yourself, in your creator, in your designer, in the one who sit up and sculpted the uniqueness of your DNA and put it into play and put you into this game called life to do something exceptional and extraordinary. So that's when you sit up and say, you know what? I've got to push past this discomfort, because that's where character is built. That's where integrity is strengthened. I've got to push past this discomfort. And so I started to sit up and I study all the people in my fields. Like, if you know me, I'm into performance and behavioral sciences. I work with helping people look at where they're at and look at where they want to go and get there. And there's a whole bunch of different disciplines that I've mastered over the years that I'm still going out every day and learning and mastering. And one of the things that is a part of that is reading every day. Something positive, something informative, something that I haven't mastered or don't know and I don't know everything about anything. And that's the one thing I constantly remind myself, because after you reach a certain level of expertise in an area and you start doing things, and the more people you run into, it gets to the point to where the more you get involved in being the best you can be at what it is you're going to do in life, the fewer people you're going to run into that have a grasp of it at the level you have it. And you can trick yourself into becoming a know-it-all. And that's the worst thing that can happen. So I constantly remind myself every day I wake up, you don't know it all. In fact, there's way more out there that you don't know than you do know. Get up and make it happen. Go get it. Go get something you don't know today, Rick. And I tell myself, you got to get something you don't know today. So I'm like, I'm anywhere they sell books, they got to know me, because I'm always sucking up something and grabbing something, and I want to know about it. And what I find is very few people like to stay in their comfort zones. And I want to get you out of the comfort zone. So the 30-day read and run challenge is about challenging the physicality of the dynamic. In other words, you need physical health in order to be able to perform optimally. And what you have to understand is that you are a holistic individual. You have emotions, you have a mental capacity, you have a physical capacity, and you have a spiritual capacity. The energy you emit is what most people look at as the spiritual element of your life, but you literally have an immaterial element that's able to transcend dimensions. I'm not going to get into all of that right now, but that's why you're supposed to watch yourself talk. See, most people talk about what's happening now. And what's happening now, whether good or bad, is now. If you get too caught up in now, you never leave it. And you could be stuck in what you used to do good, or you can be caught up in what's going on bad. And that ends up it stops being an event and it becomes suffering. It's not suffering until you decide to wallow in it, stay in it, never leave it. identify with it, make it a part of your existence. When people talk to you, that's one of the first things that come up is all you've been through and all you've had to fight through. And it's your identity. You don't realize you're locking yourself into it because you're identifying with it. Your events are meant to be events in your life that you learn from, that strengthen you, that guide you, that set you up. And then you get out there and you go out there and you do what you have to do. And from what you've learned from that event to make sure you have fewer of those events in the future. If you're consistently having the same event, whether it's failed relationships, whether it's constantly being in a financial situation over years and years and years, and you can't seem to get out of it, even when you get a nice little windfall, it's gone quickly and you don't understand why. And all of these things, what are you relating to? What's your self-talk? Remember, I told you before that your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk. Your brain is like this unbelievable supercomputer that no computer on this earth can actually rival when you understand it and you learn how to master it. It's unbelievable. It processes somewhere around 4 billion bits of information per second. That's its capacity. But your self-talk is the software and the operating system that you run on it. So with all of this information, if all you talk about is what you don't have or things that make you unhappy, guess what your supercomputer is going to focus on finding? We're talking about mental health now. So you got this holistic life where there's the physicality of it, your physiological makeup. Then you have the mentality, the emotions, the psychology of it. All of these things, the spiritual part, all of these things are meant to work in equilibrium. What does that mean? Absolute harmony with one another. What you find is when one suffers, the others try to make up for it and you become imbalanced. When you have a lot of mental stress, it starts to show up in your physical body. It starts to create health issues physically. Or when you have health issues physically, it starts to show up in your emotional health and your psychological health. And so you have to find a way to bring yourself into equilibrium. And that means holistically being holistically well, holistically healthy. And one of the things that I know that works when you commit to it, and that's why I'm coming in, because I'll sit up and I look and I say, man, you know, that was just 5 years ago. And I look and, you know, we tend to justify areas in which we allow ourselves to diminish. We tend to say, well, you know, I ain't got time for that. The thing is, you have to go back and evaluate. I can have all these visions and all these dreams, and God knows there's still so much I plan on doing. But if I don't really, truly center in on being healthy, you know, I'm always feeding my mind. And the one thing I used to take so much pride in was my body. And then you get caught up and you start giving yourself, you know, shoot, man, I'm 50 now. And the thing is, my goal this year is to make 50 the most fittest year of my life. And I mean that in every way. I mean mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and physically. I mean that every area of my life deserves my attention because I can only give at the capacity in which I have to give. If my body's going to start breaking down because of the grind, then I'm not going to be able to grind the way I want to. I'm going to spend a lot of time trying to recover from illnesses that I didn't used to have, because I'm letting myself go. I'm not eating right. I'm not exercising. And what reading, 30 days of reading and running, the read and run challenge, it simply means that you need to read at least 1 page. And I mean, start there. Read 1 page of a positive and uplifting book. I'm going to come back with at least my top 10. I might do my top 20. But I'm gonna come back with my top 10 books of all times. And I can tell you on there is going to be Think and Grow Rich by Wallace D. Wiles, written in 1906. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, written in 1903. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Awaken a Sleeping Giant by Tony Robbins. And I'm gonna get some more lined up in there because I've got so many going through my head right now. As far as growth and personal development and all of those things. Also on my new site I just launched, that's going to be extension of Rick Wallace Enterprises. It's entitled Bitcoin brain trust. Now, while a lot of it is going to address a lot of the unknowns about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, we're also going to have basic lessons, basic tips on how to take control of your finances. I don't care if you're making minimum wages. That's actually a way to use what you're making to grow out of where you're at. Don't buy into the idea because I'm currently here, I am stuck. I have to have a certain amount of money to dig my way. As a matter of fact, I will tell you, the less amount of money, the less amount of money you're making, the more paramount it is that you find a way to invest a certain percentage of that. You start out by growing what you have. You don't wait on something to fall into your lap. You create your opportunities. And that's in every area of life. Stop waiting on somebody to give you something. Stop waiting on certain people to show up in your life. What I'm going to tell you is, what William Hutchinson Murray said is that it is until you make the decision and commit to doing something without having the answer or the providence or the way or the how it's going to be done, that providence begins to move. That's when things start to happen, that the answers of how it will get done once you make the commitment. See, we've been trained to look only in a logical perspective at everything. So if I can't look at it and see how I can do it, I don't try it. The problem is, if you're trying to elevate yourself to a level of doing something that you've never done before, if you're trying to elevate yourself and live at a level and live and grab a hold of something that you never had before, the chances are the things that you need to do that you don't have readily. You don't know the right people yet. You don't have the expertise in the industry yet. You don't have the experience yet. Those are all things that you can get though. But what you have to do first is I tell people sometimes you got to leap and grow. You grow your wings on the way down. You have to be willing to understand that if you're built for something, that if you're here to make something happen, if you're built and designed for greatness, I tell you all the time, greatness is in your DNA. Greatness is in your DNA. You don't need someone's permission to be great. It's in your DNA. It's there. The problem is very few people in our culture want to access it, activate it, and act on it. They want someone to lay it out for them, hire me and show me what you want me to do, and I'll be great at it. Hire yourself. Decide what it is you're built to do, and if nobody will let you do it for them, you hire yourself. See, the one thing I learned a long time ago, I am not going to fire myself. I might write myself up. I do that. In my journal in a heartbeat. I always start out with introspection. What am I doing right? What am I not doing right? What did I say I was going to do that I have not done? I'm always honestly evaluating myself. I am a long way from being what I know I'm capable of being. I'm just not where I used to be. And that's called progress. And that's what everybody needs to be seeing in their lives, is progress. And so what we're going to do with this read and run challenge is, there are some of us that probably may not be in good enough shape to even talk about running nowhere. If you run from the living room to the refrigerator, you're out of breath. No problem. What you need to be doing is at least 15 minutes of some type of activity. If it's walking, great. If it's jumping jacks, great. If it's some push-ups and some burpees, great. Maybe that's a little too dynamic. Get up and do something for 15 minutes that causes you to labor somewhat in your breathing. What happens when you're laboring? When you're laboring in your breathing, you're actually challenging your cardiovascular system by doing something that is physical at a level that demands more oxygen. When your body demands more oxygen, your heart has to beat faster in order to get those extremities and your brain more oxygen. And so it beats faster. And what happens is, though, the more your heart beats faster, the more you train it, the more efficient it becomes. So now, instead of having to beat 5 times to get that oxygen there, it can beat once. And what you'll find is your resting heart rate will be lower, meaning that your heart is pumping at a more efficient level. And that's something that you can measure on your own. There's a lot of equipment out there that makes it easy. But what you want to do is, you don't have to have any of that equipment. If you got a iPhone, any kind of smartphone that houses music, or an iPod, or any type of thing where you can listen to music, Do something, listen to your music while you are working out or whatever. If you're running, you're jogging, walking, skipping, whatever. When you're doing it, sing along with the music. When it becomes a little difficult for you to sing along with the music, you're in a good place. For those of you who are more advanced, take it up a couple of notches. Do some interval training. Get it up there real fast, real high, drop down, recover. Get it up there. Keep your body guessing on what you're going to do. That's a great way to shock it and get it to where you want to go. There's so many different things, and I'm going to be sharing them on both of those sites, which you can find the link in. This whole thing is going to be free. Nobody's going to charge you or ask you for anything doing this thing. If you run into something on the site that you want, great, but that's not what this is about. This is about challenging us to be more healthy holistically. This is about priming ourselves to do some exceptional and extraordinary things. So what I can tell you is, if you can't physically do it, it doesn't matter what your mind is saying. You got to be able to do it. And it doesn't matter if you can physically do it if your mind can't take you there. So you need both your mind. That's why you're going to be reading and your body running to come in harmony with one another. And what you'll find is when you bring your mind and your body in harmony, you also start to bring your spirit in harmony, because your spirit is responding to what you expect. And when you get your body and your mind right, your confidence level goes up. And when your confidence level goes up, the energy you emit goes up. Your vibrations go up. Your frequency goes up. The way you're able to perform the things you expect from life go up. And I tell you all the time that God will only meet you at the level of your expectations. So all of this stuff comes into an idea. And another thing is, because we're doing this for 30 days and we're starting right now on the 18th, that means we're going to get about 13 days before we go into a new year to where we've had enough time to almost make this ritualistic, to make it habit of doing this. Now, what I'm doing is I'm accepting my mentee's challenge. Last week, he did 7 straight days of nothing but vegetable, fruit, and water. Here I come. I'm going to take that 7-day challenge while I begin my 30-day read. Now, my read and run challenge, that's something I've already started. When I decide, okay, I need my body to catch up with my brain. I need to get back to where I identify with my physical fitness the same way I identify with my intellectual, emotional, and psychological fitness. I need to be back there. I need that place, because there's some things about that I can't explain. But those people that have found that place, and I know a few that are just in one right now with their purpose. There's something that when you got your body lined up too, there's another level of confidence that comes with that. Because I can tell you, if you really understand the importance of physical fitness, you can't be unfit and not be aware of it. Now, check this out. Look how strong the mind is. I talk about the mind all the time. Well, when you know you need to be in better shape and you're not, there's always these constant little thoughts that pop up during the day of what could be happening if you don't get it together. Well, that takes away from your mental and emotional momentum. If you entertain that for a thought, it takes energy to get rid of that potential anxiety that could come from, I could fool around and end up like I was last year in the hospital. But when you take care of your body, there's certain things in life just going to happen, but you don't want to usher it in. You don't want to be a contributing factor. You don't want to be compliant with something happen to you. If it happens, you want to say, well, man, they did everything in their life they could to be in the best possible situation. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to have a beneficial effect. You're going to extend your life. You're going to extend your quality of life. That's so important. What's good is it to live 80, 85 when you're on a walker? You got this thing you're tugging behind you because you need oxygen and all these other things. When you can look over and you got a person that's 5 years, 6 years older than you in their 90s and they running around, driving, doing everything else because they challenged themselves at some point in life. They challenged themselves to continue reading, to continue working. I tell people all the time, I am not retiring. Now I'm preparing to have a point in my life where I can absolutely walk away from everything and be okay, but I'm not going to. Why? Because I know the moment that you stop and your cognitive decline starts because you're not challenging your mind, your physical decline starts too. Again, I'm trying to get you to understand the correlation between the two. You can't have a decline in one without creating a decline in the other because they're connected. They are inextricably bound together. And you have to understand that when you allow one to decline, it negatively impacts the other. So if you want a holistically healthy life, you've got to challenge yourself in every area. So this is 30 days starting today. If you go to the store, get what you need. If you think you want to take this thing to another level, I'm taking it to a veggie, fruit, and water. And I am going to tell you, I'm going to cheat every day. And I'm letting you know that. I take 1 cup of coffee. That's how I take in my healthy fats, my coconut oil, and whatever else. And I may make a decision later on, but everything else is going to fall in line with that. I don't take sugar with it or anything like that. That's my caffeine. That's how I get it. At healthy levels, caffeine is good. I used to dose caffeine as an athlete, so that's a whole nother thing. It has a different effect on me because literally I used to dose caffeine. Those who are explosive athletes, sprinters, and stuff like that know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, here we go. Starting today, make up in your mind that you're going to read and run every day. Now, that is translated, read and do something active for a minimum of 20 minutes per day. And remember that activity needs to have you laboring in your breathing, because laboring in your breathing is an indication that your heart rate is up. And so we'll talk about this some more, but what I want you guys to understand is you are absolutely 100% in control of your life and your destiny. You're writing your own story. You're writing your own story. The problem is a lot of us don't know how to write a narrative and create for ourselves or design our lives. One of the things that you have 2 kind of people when you can break this thing down. And you can break each one of those 2 types of people down into all these other different categories. But you got people who are accepting the world as it is, never exploring their power to change it, never pushing themselves beyond the parameters and boundaries that have been drawn for them and created for them and that they've been placed in. Then you have those who literally decide in their mind that they're going to design their destiny. They're going to design an outcome. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't face the vicissitudes of life. That doesn't mean that they don't meet challenges. That doesn't mean that they might not get to a certain point and then lose everything that they built and had to start over. All of that's a part of life. It's simply knowing that at some point, no matter where I'm at, I'm coming out of this. And I remember the worst time in my life. If you've listened to me before, you heard this, 2012. I remember just how bad that is. It's not a bad memory anymore. It's a reminder of what I'm capable of, because I should have been out of there. If you listen to the stories that everybody tells and you listen to the standards that are placed on the lives of people in this world, that should have took me out. It should have completely took me out. I should have gave up and quit and just gave up on life. But you know what I had? I had already experienced winning. I had already experienced what happens when I apply myself. I had already experienced and understood what it takes to build. Yes, I had built it already. So if I built it once, I could build it again. This time, I'll build it bigger. I'll build it stronger. I'll build it where it won't be vulnerable to the things that it was vulnerable to. I'll also make better decisions on how I move in my life, so I won't expose myself. I look at what I did wrong. I look at what others did to me, and I start to build new. And I'm a long way away from where I was in 2012. I'm nowhere near where I'm going. But that's the other thing. We don't know how to speak things now as if they already are. We don't know how to speak things that are not as though they were. We don't know how to understand that what we're saying about ourselves not only reflects our current reality, it lays down the path and plants the seed of our future harvest. If you're constantly talking about what's wrong, you're creating your future to bring you back the same thing. Your mind focuses on what you focus on and reproduces it. That's why you'll get a person that's over here in this place and you're going, I don't see how they're going to make it out. And then you look up 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later, and you go, how did they do that? They were speaking things that are not as though they were. People were calling them fakes and frauds and saying, that's bull crap. I know where you're at. See, people want to remind you of where you're at instead of being able to see where you're going. And that is something that you've got to be able to do. You've got to be able to sit up and Dismiss anything that someone's speaking into your life that does not line up with who you say you are. And who you say you are is not, check this out, who you are is not defined by where you're at right now. Who you are is defined by where you've been, where you're at, and where you're going. And if you start letting people define you only by where you're at, it'll start setting in your mind, and you'll start to identify with where you're at. And before you look up, you're still there 4 or 5 years ago. Why? Because you identified with an event that was only a moment and was only meant to be a moment, but you identify. Once you identify with it, it becomes a part of you. You carry it with you. And if you're carrying things that are negative with you, you create more negative situations. Learn how to speak things that are not as though they were, and claim them and live in them as if they're already happening, because they are. The moment you think it, it's already existing in the spiritual realm, in the 5th dimension and the 4th dimension. It just hasn't come into the 3rd dimension where you can touch it yet. But if you let everything around you interrupt it, if you let everybody around you naysay in your ear, if you constantly remember what you have gone through and been through, and you start identifying with the pain and the struggle more, you start identifying with what's possible. Again, I'm going to say this and I'll be done. You're designed, the designer, God designed you with greatness in your DNA. Every last one of you. There's not a person. I've dealt with children with Down syndrome. I've dealt with children with autism. I've dealt with children who were declared mentally retarded. I've dealt with people who didn't have fathers. I've dealt with people who've been molested. I've dealt with so many different people, and I have been able to identify the genius in every last one of them. It exists. The problem is we are not trained to tap into it. We are not challenged to access it, activate it, and then act on it. We're told to get in the corner where it's safe. We're told to get over here and just be okay. And so a lot of people are just walking around being okay with being average. Challenge yourself. People say, well, man, what if I'm afraid? Fear of failure, fear of what other people say, fear of how life is going to come. You're going to get your butt kicked in life. It's going to happen. Something's going to happen where something comes along, it's bigger than you. You better make sure your purpose is bigger than it. Or you're going to find yourself laying down, kicked around, wilding around, whining a lot. Because you're not going to circumvent pain. You're going to lose some loved ones. Somebody's going to disappoint you. Somebody's going to lie to you. Somebody's going to probably steal something from you or deceive you. Somebody's going to do some things to you. What you do in that moment, how you determine you're going to respond to it, is going to determine who you become. It's not what happens in your life, it's how you respond to it. I know this might not all come together, but it all does come together. There's no disconnect in the way the universe is made, designed, and operates. It's oneness. It's connected. Everything is connected. You don't get to have a thought and it not impact you. There's no such thing as inconsequential thought. These little cognitions that you entertain that you don't give significance to are wearing you out. This one thing, and then I'm gone. You know, like I said, 2012 was horrible. I'm not going to get into the details. Those of you who have followed me for any time know I hit rock bottom and I crashed into it. I mean, it was definitely the worst time of my life. And I remember dealing with a few people, and there was just one person. Every time I talked to them, they referred to me with reverence. They referred to me with respect. And they dealt with me, and they knew my story like no one else knew my story, but they treated me with more respect than anybody else. And one day, I had been so trained to behave a certain way no matter what I was going through. I didn't look like what I was going through. I didn't behave like what I was going through. I didn't talk like what I was going through. And so what I didn't realize is it was impacting people around me, and I didn't realize it positively. So one day I asked, I said, you refer to me with such reverence, you refer to me with such respect. And I said, you're the one person that know where I'm at right now. And I said, so where is that coming from? And that person looked at me and says, I don't see you as you are. I see you as you will become. And I have respect for what you're going to be and what you're going to become. And they ended by saying, I know I am a person of faith, but when I watch you move in your struggles, you challenge me to raise my faith game. That's one of the most powerful compliments I've ever received in my life, because at that time I was just simply fighting. I had made up in my mind I wasn't going to lose. That's all I had. And you know, it kind of reminds me of one line in one of Jay-Z's old songs, where he actually says it in two different songs, but there's only one rule: I will not lose. And that's sometimes where I'm at. Sometimes you don't have the answers. Sometimes everything isn't laid out for you. Sometimes you don't have the strategy in place. But if you got a mindset that there's only one rule, and that rule is I will not lose, I'm going to get up every morning, I'm going to fight, I'm going to push through it. And one day, if I just keep finding, I keep learning, I keep building, what I'm pouring into something is going to come into effect. That's the promise of faith. That's the promise of the universe. That's the promise of God. That's the promise of your design. Is that if I stand up and I fight and I work towards it, I give, I love, I trust my design, I'm going to get somewhere. Now, all these different variables in life are going to challenge you, going to push you, going to interrupt you, going to take you places. But you have to make up in your mind that, you know what? If I'm breathing, I'm still in the fight. If I'm still in the fight, I still have a chance to win. And if I have a chance to win, I'm going to win. It's that simple. Now, I didn't say it was easy. I said it was simple. I said if you get up every day and you tell yourself, I can, you will. If you get up every day and you tell yourself, I can't, you won't. It's that simple at the end of the day. Nobody is going to put massive action and energy and effort into something they don't believe they can do. So the moment they tell themselves they can't, the energy and effort they need to give to something in order to get it is never there. And so they actually reinforce that belief because they don't get the results they're looking for. They reinforce the belief of what they initially started with, that I don't have the potential. But the truth is, every person on this planet has unlimited potential. Every person. It's created in you and it comes out in different ways. But there's absolutely nothing you can't do if you put your mind to it. Nothing. I mean, you can easily right now name 10 things that you sit up and it's in your world today that if the person would have actually believed everybody else around them, we wouldn't have it. Starting with airplanes, cell phones, and we can go on down the line. I'm pretty sure they told Arvin Wilbur, y'all crazy as hell. I'm pretty sure Alexander Graham Bell was told he's crazy as hell. And so many, I mean, Madam C.J. Walker, you are not going to be the first woman millionaire in this country. You're black. I mean, and I can just go on and on and on of people who were told they were crazy and that it couldn't be done. But all they needed to know in their mind is that it could be. I tell you this, and I love you guys. I really do. I mean, I just love being able to share with people. Look, if you can conceive it in your mind, that's God's evidence that it's possible. Leave it at that for right now. If you can conceive it in your mind, if you can see it, then you can do it, be it, have it. It's God's way of letting you know that it's possible. We let people whisper in our ear too much. I don't need any confirmation except from the Almighty who designed me. Whatever he is, I'm not telling you how to approach him, how to know him. That's not my job right now. You better find that connection, because if you don't have that connection, the world is going to be unexplainable. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be chaotic. But when you have a sense of purpose, when you know that you were placed here for more than just eat, live, and die, and you start to live in that, you start to wake up every morning with that driving you, you can take some stuff you didn't think you can take. You can get through some things you didn't think you can get through. You'll look up and your purpose will provide the passion to push you through some things that most people look at and balk on. There is absolutely nothing, and I'll say this for the last time, ain't nothing you can't do. But jump in on this read and run challenge. 30 days consecutive. Now check this out. If you miss a day, you got to start over. So everybody's not going to finish this challenge in 30 days, because the rule of a true 30-day challenge when you're trying to create change in your life is that you're creating the ritualistic behavior that develops the habits that you want to form. So you want to get rid of the negative habits and you want to create positive habits. So the way you do that is you do it consecutively over time. There are some who go with the 21-day model. I go with a 30-day model. On a 30-day model, if you do it ritualistically every day, you will train yourself to need it. Your body will tell you, you didn't run today. Your mind will tell you, where am I reading at? It will demand it of you. It will become a part of who you are. You will identify with it. But that's something you want to identify with, right? Great. Awesome. That's it. Absolutely. Thank you guys for giving me your time this morning. I posted something earlier. I got to get up. I got to set up a family meeting for the night. I got to find out who keeps putting these gray hairs in my eyebrows while I'm asleep. So that's my goal for the day. I'm on a mission. This is not good. Enough is enough. I got to figure that out. But on the real note, love yourself enough to take care of yourself. I love you guys. I'm out of here. Peace.